Well, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to your Lake Fork Guide. It is tournament bass fishing season. The biggest and richest tournament, Sealy Outdoors, is this week. And today, we're going to give you guys the best techniques to go make money at Sealy Outdoors. Well, that's what today's video is all about, trying to help you guys make some money this week. Best of luck to all y'all. We've got a couple different guides once again today coming on to tell you guys exactly what their best techniques are right now on Lake Fork. This is the type of information you just don't find other places. We're going to give you guys that are on the water full time, like my good buddy Cord Hudkins, who is here right now, as well as David Ozio will be along in this video just a little bit later. But these guys are going to go all the way in depth, tell you what their best technique is, exactly what type of equipment they're using it on, what type of area they're utilizing this in, and exactly how they're working these baits to get these bites and catch these fish every day. Well, Cord, man, thank you so much for coming along and helping us. Cord is a guide out here. He works with us at Your Lake Fork Guide. You can get information on Cord at yourlakeforkguide.com. You can book a trip with Cord or any of the other guys that we work with at yourlakeforkguide.com, including myself as well. We appreciate you coming on to help us, because that's what we're about at Your Lake Fork Guide, is trying to help people as much more than anybody else will. We're going to give them, for 5 years now, we've been the place where people can come and know we're not going to hold that one secret back. We're not going to not tell you about that certain way you twitch a bait, or that little tip of chartreuse, or thinning those strands. Like, there's nothing that we hold back. We give all the details here, and you can vouch for this.
Oh yeah. Before
you do a video with me, I'm like, hey, you got to give it up. Like, if you're going to be on this channel, you got to give up the goods. And so that's what we pride ourselves on, and that's what you're about to do right now. It's a little bit of an awkward time of year sometimes in September when you're coming out of that summer to fall transition. The different thing about this year is right now we're really not in that summer to fall transition. The water temps are actually as warm as they've been all year.
Yeah.
And so we're actually kind of in the peak or the dog days of the summer bite.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, to me right now is the epitome of dog days of summer, when you drive across the lake and it's glass out there and there's not a breath of wind or nothing. It makes fishing really tough right now. You know, no fall transitions happening for me so far right now. None.
Like I said, this is as warm as the water. And the water temps can float anywhere from 87 to 90 degrees, depending on where you are in the lake right now. So we are in full summertime fishing. I actually think, because of the turnover and how that can kind of monkey fish up, this might be a better tournament as far as fishing conditions go than normal at Sealy's.
Yeah.
Just because we're still in that summertime bite. And even though the fishing is tough and you have to sometimes go really slow to catch them,
yeah,
you can catch big schools of fish right now when you come across them, because it's summertime, and that's what exists in summertime, is larger schools of offshore fish. The fish that are shallow are usually grouped up in the deepest water available to them, but fish are in groups. That's a good thing. It can also be a bad thing. This is where the tough part comes in. When fish are in the biggest groups of the year, that's when there's the most empty water of the year. So you can fish all day and some stuff that looks real good. If you ain't around them, you ain't gonna catch them, there ain't nothing there. But when you do find them, you can usually get right pretty quick.
Yeah, it really doesn't play in the hands of the guys just going down the bank. You know, like, you know, traditionally when that transition is happening,
they're all spread out. You kind of
you can just plug down the bank with your junk fish essentially. Yeah, you can go run all your docks and stuff like that. And I haven't been seeing that, or I mean, I can't catch a fish on the bank right now, to be honest. So,
well, you kind of you told me what technique you've been using. This has been your most consistent technique for bites out here lately, and I really like it. It's something I've featured on the channel in years past before. It's something that I feel like is massively overlooked.
Oh yeah.
So
sleeper.
What bait have you been using?
My big bite success, or not big bite, but most bite success has been swing head, rugby head, whatever everyone likes to call them.
Oh, biffle head, football head. Leave it to the guy from Oklahoma to be throwing a biffle head.
I mean, I know it kind of originated with the old biffle bug on the back, you know, but
right, you can throw anything.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I change it up. You know, like right now I've been throwing the 6 cents hog walla. I believe this color is actually the watermelon blue color. I really like that color when the water
summertime color.
Yeah, especially when it gets pretty clean or whatever. I really like that. and I'll even dip the tails in chartreuse from time to time.
Okay.
If I feel they're being real stingy on a certain day or certain time.
If you're graphing them, you're just not getting bit, you'll go ahead and put the chartreuse on it?
I will. I've got the fancy little pin, and I put some streaks on it, and yeah, I'm sure you got a couple of them.
You ain't the only fancy one around here, homie.
I remember I'm from Oklahoma, so that kind of stuff's fancy.
Yeah. Well, East Texas, Oklahoma ain't not a huge difference.
No. But no, I mean, like, pretty much sticking with this 3/4 ounce. Most of the time, 3/4 ounce, probably 90% of the time. Every once in a while, I'll lighten it up if I'm really trying to get it down deep in some brush piles. But most of the time, I'm just kind of whining and dragging this thing around, covering a lot of water with it, really.
So pull that bait, unhook that bait one more time. Let's talk about the plastic you're using for just 1 minute. Let me see it real quick. Show the folks at home on the camera. This is the hog wallet from 6 Cents. This is the bait he's been using. Now, two of the best plastics of all time for bass fishing are a lizard and a brush hog. And this is essentially a super combo of both. It's got the twin tail like the brush hog. It's got the body like a lizard does. Just a great bait that gives off a lot of subtle action. When it's really calm, which it has been prone to be calm here lately. It's a little windier today than what it has been really, but very little water pressure will move these appendages, these thin appendages on this hog wallet. I think it's one of the reasons it's so effective. You can fish it so slow and still get a lot of flowing action, a lot of movement. It looks alive in the water. Just a really, really good bait. You can get those at 6centsfishing.com. When you do, go order anything from 6centsfishing.com. Be sure you punch in the code Your Lake Fork Guide. You'll save 10% on anything you order. All right, there's the bait.
I'll tell you something else about the bait that I really like is, yes, you can I throw the big worms on them. I've pinned up the old ridge worm on it and a lot of things like that. I really like this because it's bulky but not bulky. It's subtle enough,
with those appendages.
And if you look at where like the meat of this bait is and where that hook goes through, it is right there on the very tail end of it. There's not a whole lot of meat past that hook. And these are so flimsy when a fish comes to get it. I've had a lot of issues this summer where they'll get finicky and that big 10-inch worm or whatever, they'll bite that sucker off right there behind the hook. They bite, but they don't get the whole bait in their mouth. This, I have almost eliminated that issue.
The hook covers most of the body, so you get good hook ratio.
I mean, even if they're just nibbling at it, their nibble is halfway up the bait, you know, but it still has a lot of drawing power with all these appendages floating around. And
really good point.
That's why I've really drawn to this bait majority of the summer.
What line are we using?
I'm using a 17-pound Sunline shooter.
Fluorocarbon?
Fluorocarbon, yes.
17-pound fluorocarbon. And now that's a pretty big hook in that 3/4 ounce swing head you got there. So what kind of rod do we need to drive that hammer home?
You know, really, I'm not going overly big. I'm throwing on a standard 7-foot medium heavy. Or whatever, keeping it light, you know, especially dog days. I don't want to lug a big old heavy rod around all day. So sometimes I'll throw it on 7.6 if I feel like I need it, but a lot of times I'm just 7-foot medium heavy, you know, a little bit on the stiffer side as far as on the medium heavies or whatever, you know, to get a little bit better hookup ratio.
That's something about rods. Different rods, a medium heavy one rod is not necessarily the same as a medium heavy in the other. So you would call that kind of a heavier, closer to heavy on the 7-foot range. Okay, all right. And then on a reel, just high-speed gear ratio? I throw it on several different ones, anywhere from 7.5 to 1, 6.8 to 1. The only thing is, if you do like the higher speed or throw the higher speed, make sure you got to stay more in tune with yourself. Be aware because like you'll get to cranking around and your bait's just fluttering all over. It's not keeping contact, you know. You know, something I tell people is you definitely feel for the bait to keep contact on the bottom, but also when they're fishing, don't pay attention to how fast your hand's moving. Watch that spool. Absolutely. Sometimes with like a 7.5 to 1 or 8 to 1, your hand can be moving like this, but that line's going.
It's coming in.
Your hand's just barely going, but it's going. I mean, you're fishing pretty good, good pace. So.
But most of the time, like 7.1, 6.8 to 1, medium, low of the high end speeds. I mean, I don't throw it on no 8 to 1, 9 to 1, all the crazy gear ratios. I don't do that. What type of areas are you finding fish in right now where this application's working? What are we fishing? Staying offshore, anywhere from 12 foot to 22, 25 foot. Just points, humps, and this thing's full-wheel drive. I will throw this in anything, no matter if it's brush, rock, shell beds. But stand out off your main lake points, your road beds, humps, brush piles.
Just any kind of high spot, and it can be a variety of depth from 12 to 20, 22.
Yes.
And just using your, like, you're really leaning on your electronics, I bet.
Yep. You lean on your electronics a lot.
To locate the fish.
Absolutely.
And then when you find a school of fish, you're fishing for it.
Absolutely. And like a lot of times, it may be a timing deal. That's a big thing too. Is I may graph them, and I may graph over them at 8:30 in the morning, but oh, they're there. I may sit on them for 30, 45 minutes and not hardly get a nibble. And I'm like, they're there. I'm gonna come back. I might come back at lunchtime and stand up on them and catch 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever out of them. You know, that's been happening a lot, to where their little feeding periods are, you got to be there, otherwise they're there but they won't bite.
Beautiful.
It's happened a lot.
That is an important factor. Timing. If you find a school of fish and they don't bite, definitely don't be scared to come back to them.
No,
I agree 100%.
Absolutely.
I know there's some different ways to retrieve this bait.
Yep.
From my experience fishing it, I fish it a few different ways. Let's get up and show the folks how you've been retrieving it to catch them here lately.
All right, guys, I'm going to show you how I've been fishing this rugby swing head. What we're doing is we're just getting out, making really long casts towards the end of your point, your brush pile, whatever you're fishing, and we're going to let it go all the way down and hit the bottom.
Stripping a little line there to make sure it gets...
Yeah, you know, just to make sure it doesn't pendulum way back towards me, in case you hit right on top of their head or something, it falls straight on top of their head. I'm gonna make sure it sits there. Sometimes I'll let it sit there because it may be right there in the middle of them. Let it soak for a second sometimes. And then I'm gonna just do like a real slow, steady retrieve, almost like you're gonna work a crankbait, but you're gonna move it real slow. You're gonna
point the rod down.
You point the rod down, and you're gonna try to feel every little thing on that bottom. That's why it's got that wide football head, is you can feel around. And every once in a while, kind of pause it, give a little drag, and you'll feel it hit the bottom, because it'll slowly try to work its way up off the bottom. But you can feel every little stick, rock, piece of shell, drop-offs. And don't be afraid to play with your retrieves. You know, sometimes speed it up a little bit, slow it down a little bit, give her some hops.
What about hook set on this bait? It's got a pretty big hook in it. I mean, are you leaning?
A lot of times I'm giving just a pretty good lean, because especially if you're getting it on the move, to me it varies. If I'm fishing it more like a Carolina rig, like I'm dragging it little by little, it's more of a reel down on them, and I'm gonna sit back on them pretty solid. But a lot of times if they're picking it up while it's moving, it's just, you know, making sure there's no slack and just a big long sweeping hook set. You're just kind of swinging into them.
So if you're dragging slow, big hook set. If you're swimming it on the bottom, crawling it on the bottom,
you're giving more like a swing, almost like a crankbait hook set. Difference between like a jig hook set.
Just a hard crankbait hook set. Basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, just a hard crankbait.
Okay.
But you know, like if you're just dragging it, like a big sweeping drag, it's going to be more like a reel down and set in on them. You know, and sometimes they want it the slower Carolina rig. You know, I just did like a reeling in retrieve, so this time I'm just going to give it a nice drag it, let it sit there, like let it marinate essentially. You know, let them get a good look at it. Like I said, you kind of got to let the fish tell you what they want. You know, you pull up on them, you'll see them on your graph, and sometimes you just got to figure out what kind of retrieve they want, and it'll change from day to day, time of day.
Well, Cord, man, thank you so much for taking time to tell us
your
best Lake Fork technique for the Sealy Outdoors Big Bass Splash coming up this weekend. You guys go out there, get some swing heads, get that 6-cent hog walleye, and when you cast a check, y'all send Cord a message or something, tell him thank you, because he helped us out. So, brother, I appreciate you.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Most importantly, thank you guys for watching. Now, we got David Ozio. He's coming up on the next segment. Let's hear how David's catching.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. It's probably a like 8-pound line and a drop. We'll see. We'll see.
It'll be drop shotting.
For today's second Lake Fork guide, I got Mr. David.
You're the man. Glad to be here, young man.
Brother, you're the man. Thank you so much for coming on to do what we've always set out to do on this channel. And that is, like we said earlier, help you guys, give you the most in-depth information you'll find anywhere in the world of bass fishing. Now you got another full-time guide. This guy, how long you been here at Lake Fork?
Over 10 years.
Yeah, and you've been fishing it for...
Oh, I've been fishing this lake since the mid-'80s.
Yeah, for forever.
And
since I was born. Just so you know, you've been fishing it since I was born, David.
I'm a little bit... I'm a 40-year-old old man. Okay, let's put it that way. But
you've been old for 40 years?
No, yeah. Oh, okay. I'm up there. My wife gives me crap about it all the time. It's like, ain't nobody can hang with you. Okay. And I'm up there in the age, so I'll run with most of these guys with no problem.
He will. I'll give him that. This sucker works. That's my favorite thing about David Ozios. He is probably the hardest working guy I know out here. He works and works and works at it, and he does a great job keeping people on fish. He's going to try to keep you guys on fish at the Sealy. David, I asked everybody to show us their favorite technique, and you brought me 4 rods.
Yes, I did.
So what in the hell are we doing, buddy?
Well, you know, I do things a little bit different than most of the other guides out here. You're a power fisherman. A lot of these guys are power fishermen. They're going to be swinging for the fence, going for the giants, all right? And I take a little bit different stance. My client base that calls me, you know, they're looking for stage walkers, all right? They just want to walk across the stage and smile and just feel good about themselves. And you know, with a 2.5-pound bass, you know, that makes them $800, $900, maybe $1,000, they are loving life when that happens. And last year that was the case. Created a couple of 2 or 3 patterns last year that gave them ability to do that, and most all those patterns were shallow, all right? And what we look for a lot of times is we're at the cusp of the lake turnover getting ready to happen here before the end of the month. Last year it was a little bit earlier. We don't know what's going to happen this year.
Still kind of in summertime with the water temps.
And so the water temps are still warm, and so we've been chasing that pattern here for the last 2 weeks. And the number one factor that I go looking for in association with that is shad. I've gone in a bunch of places right now in the backs of these creeks where I've been fishing here, and the shad are starting to stack up more and more and more, and that's what we're looking for. If I can get active shad in the back of those pockets, then I should be able to catch them.
So as far as your area that you're concentrating on, really it has to do with backs of creeks, but really the amount of bait. You're looking for the backs of creeks that have the most amount of bait in them.
Well, and there's one other underlying factor there is the type of vegetation in there also. And I've spent days out here a lot of times running to the back of every single creek on this lake looking for a specific grass, maybe coontail, maybe even if you can find some hydrilla. We all know where the hydrilla is on this lake, but that undercurrent there is what also gives those fish an opportunity to hide in it, and when that bait comes wobbling over the top of them, boom, they come out of the grass and get it. And for some strange reason, I've found that in the backs of these creeks where there's a lot of shad, then those fish are heavier, and that's what we're after.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, how are we doing it, man? Give us the lowdown.
Okay.
What's going on?
Well, and the first thing...
So we're going back looking for vegetation and bait fish in the backs of creeks, and then how are we catching them?
And then my number one go-to here in the very beginning is an underspin.
It looks like a 5-aught underspin.
And
it's a 5-inch Divine swim bait.
Our favorite 5-inch Divine swim bait from 6 Cents.
Another 6 Cents bait. Guys, any 6 Cents bait you hear us mention, 6centsfishing.com. Make sure you use the code your Lake Fork guide. That'll save you 10% on all.
And these are wicked. Now, listen, let's talk about this just a little bit. I don't know how long we got here on air, but the color of the bait is really, really critical based off the weather conditions. And if we've had no wind and the water's a little bit clearer, this bait works insanely well. This color is called
Pro Shad.
Shad.
I think.
Yep. It's
a shad. Look, it's blue
but
and gray.
it's more translucent, and that's what I'm after here.
Yeah.
Now, if we've had some rain and the water's a little bit more dingy back there, then I'm going to either use pretty much a stark white or even something that's just a little bit more of a matted color. And for some reason, they pick that up better than they would just a basic shad color.
So basically, based on water clarity, you're mimicking shad. You're using whites to grays, but the deal is you're going more translucent, more natural, less visible in the clear water, and then harder colors, brighter whites, the dirtier the water is. And if it's just in between, then a color like that's perfect.
Yep, dirtier water. And so, and you, with the rains coming up here, you know, I mean, we don't know if we're going to get a storm roll in here, hurricane, whatever the case, you never know. And come game day, and if you remember back a few years ago during the Sealy tournament, I think it rained every day. And so that is a real good thing to have happen, especially if you're fishing shallow, because if it's heavy overcast and raining, or if it's just a nasty day, dude, I'm going to stay shallow all day. And I'll give you an example. About 3 weeks ago, my partner and I finished well in a tournament, and it was 12:30 in the afternoon on a heavy overcast day. I caught a 255 under that was only 15 inches long, and I won big bass with it in that in particular tournament. So my goal is to put you on the biggest unders that I can possibly find. Now, in those locations in the past, we have caught some overs. The interesting thing about those overs is that usually they're no 9 and 10 pound overs. They're going to be 6 pound and 7 pound overs that are just a hedge over 24 inches. And so we try to get it, you know, fixed to where we can suit two purposes. In a lot of the cases, I'm fishing right around where the creeks make bends in the vegetation, and there's only like maybe a 3-foot bottom, 4-foot bottom in the creek, and outside the creek might only be 18 inches. But if it's got that grass, we're good to go.
Now, you told me that swim bait deal is kind of your early deal, early in the morning.
Right.
But then as it gets later in the morning, they quit biting that swim bait, you're following it up with something.
Yeah, we'll chase, and say 9:30, 9 o'clock, 9:30 in the morning. Those fish are still there. They're not going anywhere. They're not going to swim 2 miles back out to Main Lake. And so what we do is we'll pick up just a regular stick bait, and this is a 6 cents clout, and I also use it weightless, as you can see right here. And I'll usually rig 2 of them, and how I do this is I'll put it with a 4/0 hook, and with the weightless one, I'll use a heavier wire hook. All right, and then I'll rig another one up with a 1/16 tungsten in the front of it. So it depends on whether I'm near the creek or if I'm up in the real skinny vegetation. Those fish will just bury up a little bit the higher the sun gets, and so a lot of times when this just comes walking over the top of it, they'll come up out of it and grab it. So this is another option in order to go after those bigger unders, in which we're looking for.
So if you're on the swim bait bite and it fades, pick up the stick bait. That's their Nirvana color.
Yep.
Black and blue on one side.
My favorite color.
On the other.
Absolutely.
It's a phenomenal color. You got to keep your line out of the camera. We're getting tangled up over here. It's like a guide trip. We're tangled up.
Shocker.
Now, I see you brought me one more rod over there.
Well,
it's
you
my
know,
favorite technique.
I'm not going anywhere on the planet without a drop shot rod.
That's right.
And when the sun gets up high later in the morning, 11 o'clock, noon, you've got 2-3 more hours left in the tournament, then it's going to create a lot of shade, and docks are a phenomenal way to catch some big unders and some overs. And so over the years, I've perfected this down to where I'll use a drop shot, but notice how I've shortened up the leader, and we're using
this is a 6 cents Divine Shaky Head.
Yeah, okay, Divine Shaky Head worm on it, but it's a smaller bait. It's 6 inches, but look at the length of the leader. It's shorter. That's a 3/8 weight, all right? And I'll throw it most of the time on 12-pound line around the docks. He don't know how to spell 12-pound line, so I'm bringing this to you firsthand.
I had a rod once that had 12-pound line.
Once. But this rig right here, flipping it up under the docks, I'm telling you, man, it produces fantastic, and we're all still wanting to dig out the bigger unders, if not some overs. Now, if you're fortunate enough to know where some docks are that have some brush around it, that's a home run. Yeah. It's even better, especially going into the fall.
I know how you can find out where some good docks are. There's this thing called the Fish Life app, folks.
That's right. There
and you know what's really cool about what we've talked about today, where me and Cord were sitting earlier in this video, that actual spot where me and Cord were sitting, is we just updated the Fish Life app this week, getting ready for the beginning of the month, getting ready for Sea Lay Outdoors. That offshore spot that we were sitting on, where we were explaining to you how Cord's been fishing that swing head, that's on the Fish Life app. We have a few spots on the Fish Life app that have good stretches of docks marked. We even have some that have individual docks marked. You were talking about short, shallow water vegetation. We have some spots like that marked as well. So all of these things that we're talking to you about, these techniques that we're talking to you about, we have spots like that that are marked on the Fish Life app. We change them every month. It's always current. It tells you what type of area it is, what baits we've been using there. It's basically something you can have in your phone that gives you a very brief description of this information, but it gives you the location where you need to fish those techniques. And yes, do a lot of people see it and do a lot of people use those spots? Yes. But you can go to those spots, see those spots, and then you can find more spots like it on top of those that are your own that nobody else knows about. So it's just the easiest way for you guys coming out of town to fish Sea Lay Outdoors, or even you guys that are here to maybe see the lake in a new way, is go use that app, go to those spots, learn those spots, see how we're fishing them. You'll probably catch some fish when you're there because they got fish on them, But even if you don't, you'll learn about those areas and be able to duplicate the patterns that are working right now, because the information is always current.
Yeah, if you're a guy, for example, coming down to this tournament for the first time ever,
oh, man,
you've never been here, and I mean, the one thing you're going to have to put up with is a lot of traffic.
Yes.
There'll be tons of boats in every corner. You pull up on a main lake point, there's going to be 10 boats on a main lake point. This Fish Life app, though, you've got an advantage with that to see the whole lake and what it offers. Okay, there might be a stretch of bank over here in BFE that has a little bit of hydrilla on it, or maybe a little bit of bank grass like you got behind us, shoreline vegetation, and it's an isolated situation that nobody else might not be on. Boom, you end up catching a money fish off of it. So it's a very valuable tool to have, especially if you've been here for the first time.
Absolutely. Well, David, thank you so much for that report, man. That was great. We've had several guides on this week. I hope you guys have enjoyed the heck out of these videos. Really, whether you enjoy them or not, I hope you enjoy them, but whether you do or not, I really hope that this helps you and that a lot of you guys make some money from watching the content, because that's our whole purpose when we do these. Listen, we're all fortunate enough, we get to do what we love every day. We're out here fishing every day. We're taking other people fishing. We get to see people catch their biggest bass and get a big smile on their face. It's a wonderful life that we get to lead, and we're only able to do it because of people like yourself that book guide trips, and also just you guys that just watch the videos alone. That creates exposure for us, which allows us to get in front of more people, which allows us to book more trips, which allows us to feed our families doing what we love. And so we owe you guys a big debt of gratitude for doing everything that you do for us, and that's why we try so hard on these videos to give you everything we can. David, you have done an excellent job doing that today, as you always do. You're with us so much, and you've been with us for a long time, and I appreciate that. You guys go check us out at Your Lake Fort Guide. If you want to get on a guide trip with David Ozio or any of our guides, including myself, go check us out at yourlakefortguide.com. Give us a call, give us an email, however you want to do it, and we'll get you out here, and you can get some one-on-one time with a guy like David, and he'll teach you everything there is to know about a dang drop shot. I'll guarantee you that.
We eat, sleep, and live the game.
That's right.
And when you do that, you're going to be way ahead of the competition.
That's right, absolutely. Hey, thank you guys so much for watching, as always, and like I said, everything that y'all have done for us to help us all live our dream literally. We really appreciate it sincerely, and we'll see you next time right here.
Your Lake Fort Guide.
We'll get better at that. We'll get better. We probably won't get better at that.